We're going to move right along here. I'm Jim Sullivan, Sports Business Journal. It's great to see everyone this morning. We've got a great segment coming up right now. As Chris Traeger said, the Comcast NBC Universal Sports Tech Accelerator finds, funds, and fast tracks startups, innovative startups, and they pair them with decision makers from the Comcast SportsTech partners, such as NASCAR and NBC Sports. So we've got a couple of segments coming up. Fittingly, I'm going to turn things over to Bill Connors. He's the president of Xfinity for Comcast Cable. Bill's got decades of experience in cable, broadband. He oversees their residential business and all of their consumer endeavors, and he is a champion of the Accelerator program. Bill, over to you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you to everybody. So my goal is to get out of the way because I want to make sure the balance of the time is really to hear from two of the 11 startups that you see out there in the open foyer area. But a little bit of additional context to the Comcast NBC Universal Sports Tech Initiative. Launched in 2020, in January 2020, and whenever I speak at an event like this, it comes up either informally through question and answers, and that is, what is a company like you doing in the concept of sports tech? It's the actual question that was asked of myself and others at the back end of 2019 when we did an embargoed story release before we announced in January that we were going to start an accelerator of sports tech and try to be the preeminent person or entity closest to all things sports. And the reason for that, we said, is we have the more sports around the world is consumed in our platform and networks than any other platform. As you know, through an acquisition, part of our family of business units is Sky in Europe. Obviously, the iconic brands of NBC Sports and the gravitas that we have around our Olympic rights that we have for years and years going forward. Plus, we have more venues connected across the globe than anybody else. We just have bad internal and external PR and don't tell those stories historically over the years as well as others. So when you think about the commerce of sports every single day and every single night, more sports consumed across all of our platforms and our networks, and we can say that with confidence because we see where data traffic and we see where video, linear and streaming traffic goes across all the networks, being the largest ISP in the United States. It told us very clearly, we've got to get closer to ideation. We've got to get closer to sports. We also own sports venues. We also own a professional sports team in the Philadelphia Flyers. And we have assets that we said we needed help on. So we brought in a very curated group of people going back 2 years ago and said, we don't want to do it alone. We want to surround ourselves with folks in the sports space, many represented by the amazing Sports Business Journal talent that's in the room here that helped us along this journey. But we said we wanted to be affiliated with iconic brands. So one of the first curated folks we brought in is NASCAR. You're going to hear from Craig Neeb in a little bit. We brought in the NBC Sports brands, which is a little easier to do because it's in the family. But we also brought in the network governing bodies of some of the Olympic Committee, network governing bodies of swimming, cycling, and ski. All with the idea being, if we had ideas that should be given birth and should be funded and should get the capital, then let's test it in real life scenarios, both operationally within an actual sport itself, or put into an operations in a back office, be it a streaming application, a gaming application, a wagering application, or a venue application. So we brought in our family of venue funds and friends in Spectacor. We brought in WWE because of the innovation, ideation, the marketing, and the data analytics around that. We brought in the PGA Tour, and most recently, as you saw, we brought in, you want to talk about iconic of all iconic, depending on where you are in the globe. Earlier, the gentleman earlier, I knew where his bias was, but we brought the Premier League. So Premier League is part of this accelerator concept. All with the idea that rotate in 10 new ideas that get through the gauntlet and then give those ideas life and put them into real life applicability. So the excitement level around what we've done on just the first few cohorts, we now have 30 companies in some type of emerging status that will find its way into all future venues, will find its way into a direct relationship with any and all sports teams, because this isn't a proprietary where it's only the partners that participate. As we found already, many of these are already branching out and doing business and creating invoices and generating revenue with entities that had no idea there even was a Comcast SportsTech. But we are the beneficiary because we get a first look at every one of these. And the next big, amazing gamification of a streaming asset, we have high confidence will come through our platform. The next big solution for wagering within live on a screen in a linear or the 10-foot wagering experience versus second screen mobile will come through our experience. The best ticket redemption to get a customer off their couch in a living room in a DMA into an actual venue will come through Comcast SportsTech solution sets with the ideas that are either part of the 30 companies or part of the next 30 companies. So the excitement level about where we've come is really exciting for us, which is why there's a tremendous amount of energy around the globe on this, and hopefully you pick up a little bit on what you see out there today in the open area. But most importantly, we're going to highlight two of the companies right now with two separate panels. So with that, let me bring up first, if I could have Craig Neeb come up. Craig Neeb is, as you know, is the Chief Innovation Officer of NASCAR. You talk about iconic brands. And Shannon Ferguson, who's the CEO founder of FanSaves. So welcome to the panel. Shannon, welcome.
Thank you.
So let me first, Shannon, I'm going to do this and ask a question of you that's really easy for you because you've done it, my guess is 1 million times. Either it's the ask for the elevator pitch or it's the investment banker pitch. So let me, to help the audience here, describe what you dreamed up in your head and now you put into real action. So describe FanSaves for the audience.
Definitely. This is actually my 1 million
Yes.
one first time.
If you only had $1 for every one of those pitches.
Oh my goodness, one day. So basically what FanSaves is a digital coupon book for professional sports teams and different properties. So we offer fans discounts and deals from the sponsors of their favorite teams. So teams and organizations love FanSaves because we help drive sponsorship revenue, season ticket membership, and the sponsors, the businesses, love it because we drive fans through their doors, tracking really important customer analytics and data, and then the fans get free access to these discounts and deals, incentivizing them to actually support those sponsors, know who they are, and get free deals. So it's been a fun time. Yeah,
and before I shift to Craig, as far as what he would look for or has looked for from FanSaves, when you look back at an event, what do you determine as some of the success KPIs where you say, you know what, this one really hit? What do you look at as far as what you give either the partner, in the case of NASCAR, or anybody else you're doing? What do you look at to say you've really delivered value?
Yeah, for sure. So the great thing about FanSaves is that every time a deal is redeemed, unlike with a paper coupon or a simple link on a website, every time a deal is redeemed on our platform, it's actually tracked in a back-end dashboard for both the team or the property and the sponsor. So both organizations have access to really important data, gender, age, primary location, but a really important KPI is that redemption, because that really shows true conversion. It shows that people aren't just seeing a brand and needing to remember it. They're actually taking action, walking through those doors, whether online or in person, and spending money at that location. So that redemption KPI is really, really important for us.
And Craig, so the word data or data has been used a bunch up here through the course of the earlier speakers, and it'll be prominent on this panel and the next panel as well. And you're iconic in the amount of innovation and your interest in innovation, and what you've done at NASCAR is so impressive. But data has been probably the core of a lot of that, right? And that is knowing more about the user and engaging closer. What part of that had to be probably prominent in how you viewed FanSaves and how you eventually engage in a pilot, which we'll talk about in a second. But where's data in that hierarchy?
Data, as you mentioned, Bill, has been incredibly critical, core to our business. We've been, building, investing in this area for a long time, and most of the focus has been around the consumer side of it, which I'm sure most of you have spent a lot of investment on too. But sponsorship is a foundation of our sport. And the fact that, we want to continue to retain sponsors like Xfinity and others within our industry, we want to make sure that we can provide them data as well that really demonstrates the value from their investments and what that investment can really return in the end. And so, listening to the pitch that Shannon had for us around FanSaves, it really did resonate a lot with how we're trying to continue to build our analytics and supplement our core customer data now with something that we ultimately can feed to our sponsorship base.
It's one thing, Shannon, to have somebody tell you that it's a really good idea, they're really interested. It's another thing to say, by the way, we're going to put you into an actual race environment that NASCAR did in Chicago. So before I ask Craig to give you a grade, I'm going to tell you, what is your impression? Tell us about the Chicago engagement and what you did, and then I'll go to Craig with the observations around that. But tell the team what you did in Chicago.
Yeah, the Chicago Street Race was such an amazing opportunity, and it came together really fast, which is, in the startup world, we like to move fast. We like to get things done, and we love when partners, they are just as nimble as we are. So the Chicago Street Race, we actually powered their resource guide. So basically, we were able to offer the fans and the visitors to the town discounts and deals so they could actually know who those businesses were. They weren't necessarily sponsors, but these were businesses affected by the road closures, the downtown road closures, and it was really a way to drive economic impact. So for us, it was really important to, power the resource guide. We were embedded in the NASCAR Tracks app on their website, so NASCAR could actually drive fans to their own assets, but FanSaves was there, again, incentivizing these visitors to Chicago with these deals to check out boat tours, bus tours, all different restaurants and different things to do while they were there.
And Craig, for what you thought was going to happen and what would be the outcome versus what happened, how close in proximity was the actual results that you and the NASCAR team, when you looked at the FanSaves engagement?
Other than the 100-year reign that we had,
yeah.
it still turned out to be a great event for us. It was a real risk for us, obviously, moving an event in downtown Chicago, and it took over a year to build the relationships in the community. Those who are familiar with Chicago, you got neighborhood people who are in charge, aldermen, and you got to convince them that this is going to be it's going to be something that's going to generate incremental, hotel nights, restaurant stays, things like that. And so it was important that we built those local relationships with, especially those that were impacted directly around where we set up on Michigan Avenue and some of the other places. And that's why the resource guide was incredibly valuable to us, because we could help promote those businesses, give them an opportunity to drive more business to their establishments. And then again, having the data on the backside to prove that it actually worked. We went to Chicago to really embrace a new demographic, just like we did the LA Coliseum the year before. And this was an opportunity to reach new audiences, and the data that Shannon and her team were able to provide clearly demonstrated we hit the younger demographic. We hit, I think, almost every state in the country was participated in, and then there were several countries that outside the U.S. that were participating. And that was evidence to really go back as we collect our economic impact study, be able to demonstrate that very clearly with those analytics.
Yeah. That's awesome. Sounds like a good grade you got, Shannon, so that's good.
Yay.
It's a good outcome. So like every innovator or entrepreneur and founder, you're always morphing ahead. So what's the next big leap for FanSaves as you see, as far as work? Now that you've got a working, deployed, real, legit business, what's the next ideation step that you think FanSaves takes?
For sure, that's a great question. So currently we're working with over 80 different teams and organizations. We have over 1,300 different brands and businesses offering deals. So for us, it's just continuing to scale that. And for us, being able to pilot with NASCAR has just added so much credibility so that other organizations can look at that case study, and they can say, oh, wow, there is something here. NASCAR trusts us, so why wouldn't we trust you? Mm-hmm. So for us, we know that it's, we're at that inflection point in our company, and it's really time to scale. And again, being part of the Comcast Accelerator program has really, really helped that.
Yeah. That's good. Craig, so maybe beyond that, if not just specific on FanSaves, but same kind of question to you, and that is, as you look out at the aspirational interest of, you can speak obviously from the perspective of NASCAR, but what is that next big leap that you think? And I know all the stush around AI, and maybe there would be a faster processing of how you interpret, but beyond those, like what do you see as the next leap when you think about the massiveness of NASCAR and where that organization takes when it comes from your perch as the head of innovation?
You know, it's something that we're excited about. We invested in a new car last year, we call the next gen car. And we spent a lot of time around the mechanics of the car and everything, but we also spent a lot of time around data coming off the car, visualization, audio. And so what we see as we bring all that together, how do you bring all that together and now start to look at virtual reality, augmented reality in new ways? Our digital team has some exciting things that they're at the beginning of looking at. We have some other things through the rest of the company that we're looking at, but it really is about reaching a new audience. Again, we've had an established esports league for many years. It's the combination of reality and, the virtual, and bringing those together in some other new experience that, I think only one of our sport can really deliver against. And that's what's got us excited. And that will be complemented by AI and some of the other technologies. But I would say that's where, again, as we continue to grow our sport both domestically and then, we're also, looking at international opportunities. That's how we're going to reach those new audiences.
There's a rumor that you keep up with your workouts and running. There's a rumor somebody saw you running today. Is part of that because you get energized by the founder community and you've been such a great mentor to the sports tech startups? Is that part of it? I'm leading the witness here a little bit.
Well, thank you for that, Bill.
Yeah.
But yeah, back when Bill invited me to Atlanta back in 2019 to really kind of explore this opportunity, it was exciting. And the energy of the startups are, if you don't draw excitement from them, it's so contagious. And it's that entrepreneurial spirit to really, be on the forefront of something new and helping, these companies that have their heart and soul put into these businesses, the sweat equity, to be able to give them the inside information. That's where us as an industry, I'm sure you all get inundated with people who think they have the next best great idea for sports, and they're doing it from a fan's perspective, not necessarily, what a business perspective is. And that process of which, the Comcast SportsTech Accelerator team enables that vetting process so that we can get down to these finalists and we can really look through them, really just is a tremendous asset for us. And it's exciting. I love the interviews when we get down to the final selection process and the enthusiasm, and you almost hate to say no to anybody, but there's only a fortunate few that can make it.
Shannon, you did the 60-minute elevator pitch. We just did a 9.5-minute panel, which is all we have before we seat the next panel. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Shannon, for sharing your experience, and thanks for the commitment you're making towards entrepreneurialism and giving the next big idea birth out there. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig. Thank you. As next part of the speed round, let me introduce the next panel. So first up is part of my family, the Comcast NBC Universal family. Let me introduce Will McIntosh, who's the president of NBC Sports Next and Fandango, along with Steve Rimmer, who's the CEO founder of TicketsforGood. Welcome, Will. Steve, welcome. Come on in. So Steve knows exactly where the first question is going to go because you also have done it a million times. Give the audience out there your description of TicketsforGood and what it's about and how you would explain it to the team out here.
Thank you, Bill. Well, I'm Steve Rimmer, the founder and CEO of TicketsforGood. And we're a ticketing platform, but we're not a ticketing retailer. We partner with the retailers to add value to event partners such as sports teams, live music promoters, theatre producers. Specifically, we do that to help them give away free and heavily discounted tickets to healthcare workers, charity workers, or people affected by the cost of living.
Yeah, that's good. That's less than 60 seconds, so that only gets you $500,000, I think, in investment from the group in the next 10 minutes. So, Will, let me defer to you, and your scope of responsibility is pretty massive. So plugging something like this in and looking at TicketsforGood, how did you look at it, and you ultimately put together an engagement model? So, maybe it's a little bit compare and contrast what you first thought it was versus you got closer to it, you understood it a little differently, and how you look at TicketsforGood now and how you've engaged with them in the marketplace.
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say, what we immediately loved about Steve and his business is it's both that, it's both a for-profit business model, but it's got this awesome pro-social benefit to it. And when you can combine those two together, which you rarely see, it just instantaneously was something that we thought made a lot of sense for us to partner with him on. Because if you look at what he's trying to do, he's trying to provide a bit of escape and a bit of entertainment to some of the real heroes in the communities that are out there, whether that's military service members or teachers or first responders or whoever that might be. And so when you think about his business model, where he needs to partner with companies that have leisure activities that can provide some level of escapism, but also have underutilized inventory. And then you combine that with two of the three businesses that I oversee within Comcast. One is the largest movie ticketing platform in the world. The second is the largest online tee time reservation service in the world. And those are two industries that appeal to a lot of people, leisure activities that appeal to a lot of people, but there's also a lot of underutilized inventory. So when you put those two together, it just made perfect sense, Bill. And we started with our tee time business, and we're quickly getting Steve and his team involved with our movie ticketing engine as well.
Steve, you have to establish relationships with the entities where the tickets are going to, everything from heroes to just plain philanthropic. And so how complicated is that process? I would assume that it's a pretty high receptiveness to say, yes, we're in, but there's still a process of linking and documentation, getting the data sets lined up so that the ease of transmission. So give the group a little sense of that part of the process, of how you build that audience base so that tickets can go somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, the amount of times people have said, this is such a great idea, I can't believe no one's done it before. And people have done it.
You now know why?
Indeed. There's a lot of complexities. We think about three angles. One is about getting tickets in. We have to arrange those allocations. We do that through our 3D model of donated, discounted, or distressed inventory. We have to partner with the rights owners, who could be the live music producers or the sports teams, to give us those tickets. After that, we need to make sure we can get those tickets out. In particular, we need to make sure we've got what I call liquidity of supply and demand, and make sure there's enough people signed up who are pre-verified, the healthcare workers, charity workers, or people on low incomes, to take those tickets. Make sure there's a high conversion rate. Finally, we need to connect in with the primary retail partner, such as Ticketmaster or Access or any other retailer, to make sure that it's a frictionless experience for that guest to get in the event. So there's a huge amount of work that goes in from our side, and we've built the platform to list the tickets, but we then connect in with all of the retailers specifically. Yeah.
Will touched on, Steve, the fact that it's clearly got a very central core philanthropic mission that is pure and unchallenged. But there is a for-profit kind of spin to this. So when you pitch this for adoption, that part of it, connect the dots for individuals on how this actually does throw off dollars in the, connect the dots for people of how that maybe comes to light when people that do engage with this product.
Absolutely. So rightly so, people would assume maybe we're a charitable organization because of the name Tickets for Good, but we actually think that doing good can also be good for business, great for business in fact, because we have this model we call the 3D model, which is donated, discounted, and distressed tickets. But it's really about moving people through that funnel, getting them to the wow moment if they've not been to an event for a long time or ever, getting them to go to that show, have an amazing experience, and perhaps they have a free ticket now, then it's a discounted next, and then eventually they become a future fan and a lifelong fan at that, paying full price. So it's moving people through this funnel as an audience building technique, as well as being philanthropic, but also filling seats, because making sure people going through the venue, they're buying merchandise, food and beverage, parking, everything to make that event vibrant and successful. That's what we do as well.
And Will, that's not the primary reason you first looked at it, I know from conversations, but that's been kind of, that's an intended outcome that's okay to talk about, right?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And one of the things that Steve and I have been talking about is if when you think about what he's trying to achieve, I think there's a lot of big companies out there that would love to help facilitate this business model. I think the challenge he referenced, which I think is one of the things that he's done a good job with so far, and he can work with companies like us to help him, is whether it's a golf course or a theater owner or sports team or a concert venue, they still need to get paid, mm-hmm. And nobody, we live in an environment right now where you have these premium experiences. You just heard the the panel earlier talk about it, where discounting is not something that people feel great about, but the idea that you're doing it for good and that ultimately you're doing it in a way where you're seeding future customers for your business, I think is what makes the model make perfect sense.
Will, a similar question that I asked Craig earlier, either using Tickets for Good as one example, but even broader beyond that. I mean, your business model is super challenging, but it's about filling capacity on the assets that you're responsible for. So what's the next big leap that you see and obviously data is a key part of that as well, but what's the next big leap or development that you're either seeking or you think is here but just needs to mature as far as to take your assets to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was mentioned earlier, but like you look at what is happening with artificial intelligence and you think about some of the businesses that we oversee. So the idea that you would create an online tee time concierge that was an AI-driven chatbot of sorts, but that could help you book a tee time in a very conversational way. You could do that with movie tickets. You could do that with a variety of the businesses we're looking, that we're involved with. So we're very focused on that. And then one of the stories, Bill, that I'd like to share here, which is a great one, and obviously you deserve a lot of credit for the accelerator even existing, but we just acquired one of the first cohort companies last year, and that lives within our youth and recreation sports division, the third one that I didn't talk about earlier. We also facilitate more youth and recreation sports participation than any other tech company in the world. And we bought a company that was called Rapid Replay, but we're using their platform and their executives to grow what will ultimately become the biggest streaming platform for youth and rec sports. So we're excited about that as well.
Yeah, that's a great outcome and a great success story, and we want hundreds more of those in the upcoming years. Steve, a similar question I asked the previous panel too, looking at your business. Granted, you're grinding every day and having great success every day, but as you mentally leap forward, where's Tickets for Good on what's that next big step that you see that's out there somewhere as you're marching towards?
Absolutely. Well, building on the success of what we've done so far with 250,000 users, 500,000 tickets processed, and over 10 million in savings for those users, the next step is to go 10x from here. We want to connect in with all of the retail partners through APIs in particular, both on the ticket supply side, but also on the demand side. We've got some amazing demand side partners through our charitable organizations, some of the Comcast organizations in particular, where there's this huge amount of pre-verified users that we can connect to and give millions of people access to these tickets. So for us, it's about automation through technology connections in particular, but also just expanding our awareness across the country and in particular the United States.
Perfect. That's exciting. Will, I'm gonna throw it to you for maybe the final one. So you actually have a really interesting background. You were an entrepreneur, and now you're in the grinded out lunchbox business part of the world. Thank goodness for us, because you're part of our team. But being around entrepreneurialism and ideation, there's an energy level there, and Craig talked about it earlier, and you get to hook up regularly with people like Steve and others, but just a pitch out there of what being around that ecosystem that keeps you fresh and maybe energizes your team on thinking internally about a creative solution to the daily problems that you have. A little bit about that.
Yeah, well, look, you started off by saying one of the things that got you interested in doing this at all was the fact that Comcast, Big C, never got its proper due for the technology company that it is and the innovation that it facilitates. Mm-hmm. And as you know, we were kindred spirits in that world, because I shared that frustration, because I operate these three very large digital businesses inside of NBCU that were startups once. I was in a startup that was acquired by Comcast, and so it's in the DNA of our three businesses. And as you know, as your responsibilities grow, and we are part of a big company that can be a little bureaucratic at times, you don't get the opportunity to spend time on innovation, which is why we love partnering with companies like Steve's and being part of the accelerator.
Yep. Well, Steve, we wish you all the success going forward. Same thing with Shannon. If you'd like to see other Steve and Shannons, we encourage you to go out there. If you punch your passport item, there's a $2,000 travel voucher that's going to be raffled off for those that go through the cycle. But we're really excited about what's happened so far in Comcast SportsTech and super excited about the future. And thanks to you two gentlemen for closing out the panel. Thank you very much.
Thanks, gentlemen, thank you very much. I'd like to ask everyone just please stay in your seat.